Have you ever looked at someone in your life and quietly decided who they were without ever knowing their full story? Maybe you thought they were ordinary. Maybe you believed they had nothing to show for their life. Maybe you even felt they had given you less than you deserved. I did too. I grew up believing I understood everything about my world. I thought I knew what success looked like. I thought I knew what mattered. And most of all, I thought I knew the person standing right in front of me, but I was wrong. Completely wrong. Because sometimes, the quietest people are carrying the loudest stories. Sometimes, the simplest lives are built on the deepest sacrifices. And sometimes, the truth doesn't knock gently. It arrives in a moment, unexpected, undeniable, and changes everything you thought you knew. This is not just a story about a journey across the world. It's a story about a journey within, about assumptions breaking, truth unfolding, and the kind of realization that stays with you forever. So I want you to stay with me. Not just to hear what happened, but to feel what it means, because by the end of this, you might not just see this story differently. You might start seeing someone in your own life differently too. The theme of hidden sacrifice revolves around the idea that the most meaningful contributions in a person's life are often the ones that remain unseen, unspoken, and unrecognized. It highlights how individuals can endure hardships, make difficult choices, and give up personal desires for the sake of others without ever seeking acknowledgement. This kind of sacrifice does not come with visible rewards or public appreciation. Instead, it exists quietly beneath the surface, shaping outcomes and protecting others in ways that are not immediately obvious. In many cases, people misinterpret silence or simplicity as a lack of effort or achievement, when in reality it may be the result of years of dedication, restraint, and resilience. Hidden sacrifice is deeply tied to roles that demand discretion and emotional strength. It often involves suppressing one's own struggles to maintain stability for others, whether within a family, a profession, or a larger responsibility. The person making these sacrifices may choose not to share their experiences, either because they are bound by duty, believe it is unnecessary, or want to shield loved ones from worry. This creates a gap in understanding, where others only see what is visible and form incomplete or even incorrect judgments about that person's life and contributions. Another important aspect of hidden sacrifice is the emotional cost it carries. The individual may face isolation, misunderstanding, or even resentment from those they are trying to protect, simply because their actions are not explained. Despite this, they continue their efforts without seeking validation, driven by a sense of responsibility or purpose that goes beyond personal recognition. This silent endurance becomes a defining characteristic of their strength, even though it may go unnoticed for a long time. The realization of hidden sacrifice often comes later, sometimes triggered by a specific event or revelation that exposes the truth behind the silence. When this happens, it can lead to a profound shift in perspective, replacing assumptions with respect and regret. It challenges the tendency to judge value based on outward signs and encourages a deeper awareness of what people might be carrying internally. Hidden sacrifice ultimately reflects a form of strength that is not measured by what is shown, but by what is willingly endured without recognition. Misjudging someone based on appearances is a deeply ingrained human tendency that often leads to incomplete or entirely incorrect conclusions about a person's life, character, and worth. People naturally rely on what they can see: material possessions, outward behavior, communication style, or social status, to form opinions quickly. This process feels efficient, but it ignores the complexity beneath the surface. A quiet life may be mistaken for a lack of ambition, simplicity may be seen as failure, and emotional distance may be interpreted as indifference. In reality, these visible traits can conceal experiences, responsibilities, and sacrifices that are far more significant than what is immediately apparent. This kind of misjudgment is often shaped by societal standards that equate success with visibility. Wealth, recognition, and expressive personalities are commonly viewed as indicators of achievement, while restraint, discipline, and silence are undervalued. As a result, individuals who do not display conventional signs of success are easily overlooked or underestimated. This creates a gap between perception and truth, where people are defined by superficial impressions rather than their actual contributions or struggles. Another factor that contributes to misjudging others is the lack of communication or context. When someone chooses not to share their experiences or explain their actions, others tend to fill in the gaps with assumptions. These assumptions are rarely neutral, they are influenced by personal biases, expectations, and comparisons with others. Over time, these false narratives can solidify into firm beliefs, shaping relationships and attitudes in ways that may be unfair or harmful. The person being judged may be carrying responsibilities or past experiences that justify their behavior, but without insight into those factors, their actions are easily misunderstood. The emotional impact of misjudging someone can be significant on both sides. The person making the judgment may develop unwarranted resentment, disappointment, or a sense of superiority, while the person being judged may experience isolation, frustration, or a sense of being undervalued. In some cases, the truth only comes to light much later, often through a revealing moment that challenges previously held beliefs. This realization can bring a mix of clarity and regret, as the individual recognizes how their assumptions shaped their perception and behavior. Misjudging based on appearances ultimately reflects a limitation in understanding, where visible reality is mistaken for the whole truth. It underscores the importance of looking beyond surface-level impressions and acknowledging that every individual has layers of experience and meaning that are not immediately visible. Military life and silent struggles represent a reality that is often misunderstood by those who have never experienced it directly. It is a life defined not only by discipline, training, and service, but also by an ongoing internal battle that rarely becomes visible to others. Individuals in such roles are expected to maintain composure under extreme pressure, make decisions with serious consequences, and adapt to environments that demand both physical endurance and mental resilience. Despite the intensity of these experiences, there is often an unspoken expectation to carry these burdens quietly, without complaint or the need for external validation. One of the defining aspects of this life is the separation between personal identity and professional duty. Emotions, fears, and vulnerabilities are frequently suppressed in order to perform effectively in high-stakes situations. This suppression does not eliminate those feelings, instead it pushes them inward, where they accumulate over time. The result is a form of silent struggle that exists beneath a controlled and composed exterior. To outsiders, this may appear as emotional distance or detachment, but in reality it is often a protective mechanism developed through necessity. Another important dimension is the impact on relationships. The demands of such a life can create physical and emotional distance from family and loved ones. Long periods of absence, limited communication, and an inability to fully share experiences can lead to misunderstandings. Loved ones may feel disconnected or even neglected, not realizing that the distance is not a lack of care but a consequence of responsibilities that cannot always be explained. This gap in understanding can create tension, even though both sides are affected by the same circumstances in different ways. The silent struggles also include the weight of responsibility carried long after specific events have passed. Memories of intense situations, difficult decisions, and the outcomes of those decisions can linger, shaping a person's mindset and behavior. However, speaking openly about these experiences is not always easy or even possible, whether due to personal choice, professional boundaries, or the challenge of putting such experiences into words. This further reinforces the pattern of internalizing struggles rather than expressing them. What makes these struggles particularly complex is that they often coexist with a strong sense of purpose and commitment. The individual continues to fulfill their role, uphold their responsibilities, and maintain a sense of control, even while dealing with internal challenges that remain unseen by others. Emotional distance in families refers to a lack of open expression, communication, and visible affection between family members, which can create a sense of disconnect even when there is underlying care and commitment. It does not always mean the absence of love, rather, it often reflects a different way of expressing it, shaped by personal experiences, responsibilities, or circumstances. In many cases, individuals who appear emotionally distant may actually feel deeply but choose not to communicate those feelings openly, either because they are not accustomed to doing so or because they believe their role requires restraint. This distance can develop for several reasons, including demanding professions, past experiences, or learned behavior from previous generations. When someone is used to handling stress internally or has been conditioned to prioritize responsibility over emotional expression, they may find it difficult to engage in open conversations about feelings. This can lead to interactions that feel formal, limited, or purely functional, where practical matters are addressed but emotional needs remain unspoken. Over time, this pattern can create an environment where family members coexist rather than truly connect. For those on the receiving, emotional distance can be confusing and sometimes painful. It may lead to assumptions that the other person is indifferent, uninterested, or disconnected, even when that is not the case. Without clear communication, individuals often interpret silence or minimal expression as a lack of care, filling in the gaps with their own perceptions. These interpretations can gradually shape the relationship, creating barriers that make it even harder to establish closeness. The absence of visible reassurance can leave individuals feeling unsupported, even if support exists in less obvious forms. At the same time, emotional distance can also act as a form of protection. For some, maintaining a certain level of detachment helps them manage stress, avoid vulnerability, or stay focused on responsibilities. It may be a coping mechanism developed over time, especially in environments where showing emotion is seen as a weakness or distraction. While this approach can be effective in certain contexts, it can unintentionally affect personal relationships where emotional connection plays a significant role in building trust and understanding. The complexity of emotional distance lies in the gap between intention and perception. One person may believe they are fulfilling their role and showing care through actions, while the other may be seeking verbal or emotional affirmation that is not being provided. This mismatch can persist unless there is an effort to recognize and understand these differences, as well as a willingness to bridge the gap through clearer communication and empathy. Respect earned, not shown refers to the idea that true respect is not something that is demanded, displayed through status, or immediately visible, but rather something that is built gradually through actions, consistency, and character over time. It emphasizes that genuine respect comes from what a person does, especially when no one is watching, rather than what they say or what they appear to be on the surface. This type of respect is often quiet and understated, making it easy to overlook, particularly in environments where recognition is tied to visibility or outward success. In many situations, people associate respect with authority, wealth, or influence, assuming that those who hold higher positions automatically deserve admiration. However, respect that is simply granted due to status can be superficial and temporary. It may exist outwardly, but it does not always reflect a deeper acknowledgement of a person's integrity or contributions. In contrast, respect that is earned develops from repeated demonstrations of reliability, discipline, and the ability to act with purpose even in challenging circumstances. It is reinforced over time as others begin to recognize patterns of behavior that reflect strong values and commitment. One of the defining characteristics of earned respect is that it often exists without being openly expressed. People may not always articulate their admiration or acknowledgement, but their behavior reveals it in subtle ways, such as trust, deference, or the weight given to someone's presence and decisions. This makes it different from performative respect, which relies on visible gestures or verbal praise. Earned respect does not require constant validation because it is rooted in a deeper understanding of who the person is and what they have done. Another important aspect is that earning respect usually involves enduring difficulties, making sacrifices, and maintaining standards even when it is inconvenient or personally costly. It requires consistency over time, as a single action is rarely enough to establish lasting respect. This process can be challenging because the individual may not receive immediate recognition or feedback, leading others to underestimate their value. Despite this, they continue to act according to their principles, allowing their actions to speak on their behalf. The contrast between earned respect and shown respect highlights the difference between perception and substance. While shown respect can be influenced by external factors and may change quickly, earned respect is more stable and enduring because it is based on proven character. It reflects a deeper level of acknowledgement that goes beyond appearances and recognizes the true measure of a person's contributions and integrity. The mystery of a parent's past refers to the unknown or partially understood experiences, decisions, and identities that shape who a parent is, but remain hidden from their children. Every individual has a life that existed before their role as a parent, filled with challenges, achievements, relationships, and defining moments. However, not all of these details are shared openly, either because they are difficult to explain, considered unnecessary, or intentionally kept private. This creates a gap between what children see in the present and what actually contributed to the parent's character and behavior. Children often perceive their parents through a limited lens, shaped by daily interactions, routines, and visible traits. When a parent is reserved, disciplined, or emotionally distant, these qualities may be interpreted at face value without understanding their origins. The absence of stories or explanations can make a parent seem simple or unremarkable, even though their past may be far more complex and significant. This lack of information can lead to assumptions that fill the void, forming a narrative that may not accurately reflect reality. The mystery is further deepened by the nature of certain experiences that are difficult to communicate. Some events may involve responsibility, sacrifice, or environments that are hard to translate into everyday conversation. A parent might choose silence not because there is nothing to share, but because sharing would require revisiting intense memories or exposing aspects of their life that they prefer to keep separate from their family. In other cases, they may believe that their past is not relevant to their child's present, focusing instead on providing stability and guidance without drawing attention to themselves. This unknown past can influence a parent's behavior in subtle ways, shaping how they respond to situations, set expectations, or interact emotionally. Without understanding the context behind these behaviors, children may misinterpret them, seeing strictness as harshness or distance as indifference. The lack of clarity can create a sense of disconnect, where the parent's actions feel unexplained or inconsistent. When the truth about a parent's past is eventually revealed, it can lead to a significant shift in perception. What once seemed ordinary or even disappointing may take on new meaning as hidden experiences come to light. This realization often brings a deeper appreciation, but it can also carry a sense of regret for not having understood sooner. The mystery of a parent's past highlights how much of a person's identity can remain unseen, even within close relationships, and how easily that absence of knowledge can shape perception. The authority figure revealing truth represents a pivotal moment where hidden realities are brought to light by someone whose position carries credibility, power, and influence. This type of figure is often respected not just because of their rank, but because their words are trusted to carry weight and accuracy. When such a person steps in to reveal information, it immediately shifts the perception of what is being said. Because the source itself demands attention and belief, the involvement of an authority figure transforms what might have been dismissed as speculation or exaggeration into something undeniable and real. This dynamic is significant because it introduces an external validation of truth that was previously unknown or ignored. In many situations, the truth may already exist, but without a credible source to confirm it, it remains hidden or overlooked. When an authority figure presents that truth, it breaks through doubt and forces a reassessment of prior assumptions. The listener is placed in a position where they must confront the contrast between what they believed and what is now being revealed. This moment often carries a sense of shock, as it disrupts established perceptions and introduces a new understanding that cannot easily be dismissed. Another important aspect is the timing of such a revelation. It usually occurs at a critical point, when the truth has the greatest impact on the individual's perspective or emotional state. The authority figure does not simply provide information. They act as a catalyst for change, triggering a deeper realization that extends beyond the facts themselves. This can lead to a rapid shift in how a person views others, particularly if those others were previously misunderstood or underestimated. The authority figure's role is not just to inform, but to redefine the narrative in a way that compels attention and reflection. The emotional effect of this moment can be intense, as it often exposes gaps in understanding and highlights the consequences of earlier assumptions. The individual receiving the truth may feel a combination of surprise, disbelief, and recognition, followed by a deeper sense of clarity. The authority figure, in this context, becomes the bridge between ignorance and awareness, delivering a perspective that might not have been accessible otherwise. The power of this keynote lies in how it emphasizes the importance of credible voices in shaping understanding, and how a single moment of revelation delivered by the right person can completely alter perception and force a reevaluation of what was once believed to be true. The turning point moment, represented by the Geneva Call, signifies a sudden and decisive shift in the direction of understanding, where everything that once seemed certain begins to unravel. It is not just an event, but a catalyst that interrupts the normal flow of life and forces immediate attention. Before this moment, assumptions, beliefs, and perceptions remain stable, even if they are flawed or incomplete. The turning point disrupts that stability, creating a sense of urgency and curiosity that cannot be ignored. It marks the transition from ignorance to discovery, where the individual is pushed into a situation that demands a deeper confrontation with reality. What makes a turning point powerful is its simplicity and intensity. Often, it comes in the form of a brief message, a single instruction, or an unexpected encounter that carries more weight than its surface suggests. The Geneva Call, in this context, is not explained or justified in detail, which adds to its impact. The lack of information creates tension, compelling the individual to act without fully understanding why. This uncertainty amplifies the significance of the moment, as it removes the comfort of preparation and replaces it with immediate action. Another important aspect of a turning point is that it creates a clear divide between before and after. Everything that existed prior to this moment is suddenly placed into question, while everything that follows begins to reshape perception. The individual may not fully grasp the importance of the moment at first, but as events unfold, its significance becomes undeniable. It acts as a doorway to a new perspective, one that reveals truths that were previously hidden or ignored. This shift is often irreversible, as the knowledge gained cannot be undone or forgotten. The emotional impact of such a moment is equally significant. It can bring confusion, anticipation, and even resistance as the individual struggles to reconcile what they know with what they are about to discover. There is often a sense of being pulled into something larger than oneself, where personal control is limited and the outcome is uncertain. Despite this, the turning point carries a sense of inevitability, as if it was always leading to this moment of realization. The Geneva Call symbolizes more than a physical journey. It represents an internal transformation that begins the moment the call is received. It initiates a process where assumptions are challenged, truths are uncovered, and perspectives are permanently altered, setting the stage for a deeper understanding that could not have been reached otherwise. The journey of self-realization refers to the internal process through which an individual begins to understand their own beliefs, assumptions, and identity more clearly, often after being confronted with new truths that challenge their previous way of thinking. It is not a physical journey, but a mental and emotional transformation that unfolds over time, usually triggered by a significant event or revelation. This process forces the individual to re-examine how they have perceived others, especially those close to them, and to recognize the limitations in their own understanding. At the beginning of this journey, there is often resistance. People tend to hold on to their existing beliefs because they provide a sense of certainty and control. When new information contradicts those beliefs, it creates discomfort and internal conflict. The individual may question the validity of the new perspective or attempt to justify their previous assumptions. However, as more evidence or experiences reinforce the new understanding, it becomes increasingly difficult to ignore the truth. This gradual shift marks the early stages of self-realization, where denial begins to give way to acceptance. As the process continues, the individual starts to reflect more deeply on their past thoughts and actions. They may recall specific moments where their judgments were based on incomplete information or where they misunderstood someone's behavior. This reflection often brings a sense of clarity, but it can also lead to feelings of regret or guilt. Recognizing one's own misjudgments is not always easy, as it requires humility and the willingness to accept personal flaws. Despite this discomfort, it is a crucial part of growth, as it allows the individual to move beyond superficial understanding and develop a more accurate and empathetic perspective. Another important aspect of self-realization is the shift in values and priorities. What once seemed important may lose its significance, while previously overlooked qualities, such as resilience, discipline, and quiet strength, gain new meaning. This change reflects a deeper awareness of what truly defines a person's worth, moving away from external measures and toward internal qualities. The individual begins to see beyond appearances, recognizing the complexity and depth that exist within others. The journey of self-realization ultimately reshapes how a person sees themselves and their relationships. It encourages a more thoughtful and reflective approach to understanding others, reducing the tendency to judge quickly, and increasing the capacity for empathy and respect. This transformation is not immediate or complete, but it represents a continuous process of learning and growth, driven by the willingness to confront and understand the truth within oneself. Pride mixed with regret is a complex emotional state where admiration and sorrow coexist, often emerging after a deeper understanding of someone's true value or sacrifices. It occurs when an individual recognizes the strength, achievements, or integrity of another person, while simultaneously reflecting on their own past inability to see or appreciate those qualities. The pride comes from finally understanding the depth of that person's character, while the regret stems from missed opportunities to acknowledge, respect, or connect with them earlier. This emotional combination is powerful because it involves both realization and reflection. Pride alone is uplifting, creating a sense of admiration and respect. Regret alone can feel heavy, focusing on past mistakes or lost moments. When these two emotions merge, they create a layered experience where the individual feels both elevated by the truth they have discovered and burdened by the awareness of their previous misunderstanding. This duality often leads to a deeper and more lasting impact than either emotion would on its own. The pride in this context is not based on external success or visible achievements, but on the recognition of qualities that were previously overlooked. These may include resilience, discipline, sacrifice, or quiet strength. Once these qualities are understood, they reshape the individual's perception, replacing earlier judgments with genuine respect. This pride is often accompanied by a sense of connection, as the individual begins to see the other person in a more meaningful and accurate way. At the same time, regret arises from the realization that this understanding came too late or after a period of misjudgment. The individual may recall moments where they dismissed, questioned, or undervalued the person, now seeing those actions in a different light. This can lead to a sense of loss, not necessarily because something tangible was taken away, but because opportunities for appreciation, communication, or emotional closeness were missed. The awareness of these missed moments can be difficult to process, as it involves acknowledging one's own limitations in perception and empathy. This emotional state often leads to a shift in behavior and mindset. The individual may become more attentive, more respectful, and more conscious of how they perceive others. The combination of pride and regret acts as a form of internal correction, encouraging growth and a more thoughtful approach to relationships. It reinforces the importance of looking beyond surface-level impressions and recognizing the deeper qualities that define a person, even when they are not immediately visible. Revenge through success, not anger, reflects a mindset where the response to misunderstanding, doubt, or underestimation is not confrontation or hostility, but personal growth and achievement. Instead of reacting emotionally or seeking to prove others wrong through arguments, the individual chooses to channel their energy into improving themselves and building something meaningful. This approach transforms what could have been negative emotions into motivation, allowing the person to rise above the situation rather than be consumed by it. This concept challenges the traditional idea of revenge, which is often associated with retaliation, conflict, or causing harm in return. In contrast, revenge through success is quiet and constructive. It does not rely on external validation or direct acknowledgement from those who doubted or judged. The focus shifts inward, where the individual measures progress based on their own development rather than others' opinions. Success becomes a form of response, not because it is used to boast or dominate, but because it naturally disproves the assumptions that were once made about them. A key aspect of this mindset is discipline. Achieving meaningful success requires consistency, effort, and patience, especially when driven by a desire to overcome past perceptions. The individual must resist the urge to react impulsively or emotionally, instead maintaining focus on long-term goals. This often involves working in silence, without the need to constantly explain or defend oneself. Over time, the results of this effort become evident, not through words but through tangible outcomes that speak for themselves. Another important element is the shift in perspective. Instead of viewing past judgment or underestimation as purely negative, the individual begins to see it as a source of motivation. The very doubts that once felt limiting become fuel for progress. This reframing allows the person to maintain control over their response, turning what could have been a setback into an advantage. It also reduces the emotional burden, as the focus is no longer on seeking approval or proving others wrong directly, but on achieving personal excellence. This approach also carries a sense of quiet confidence. The individual does not need to announce their intentions or seek recognition, because their actions and results naturally create an impact. Those who once misjudged them may eventually recognize their mistake, but that recognition is not the primary goal. The true outcome lies in the individual's growth, resilience, and ability to rise above negative perceptions without being defined by them. Quiet strength versus loud success highlights the contrast between two very different ways of demonstrating value and achievement. Quiet strength is rooted in resilience, discipline, and consistency, often expressed without the need for recognition or validation. It is the ability to endure challenges, maintain integrity, and continue forward without drawing attention. Loud success, on the other hand, is visible, expressive, and often celebrated openly. It is associated with recognition, external achievements, and the display of accomplishments that can be easily seen and acknowledged by others. Quiet strength is not immediately obvious because it operates beneath the surface. It is reflected in how a person handles pressure, how they respond to adversity, and how they maintain their principles over time. This type of strength does not rely on external praise or visibility. Instead, it is sustained by an internal sense of purpose and responsibility. Because it is not openly displayed, it can be misunderstood or overlooked, especially in environments where attention is given to what is most visible rather than what is most enduring. In contrast, loud success captures attention quickly. It is often measured through tangible indicators such as wealth, status, or public recognition. These markers make it easier for others to identify and celebrate achievement, creating a perception of importance and influence. While loud success can represent genuine accomplishment, it is sometimes amplified by the way it is presented, making it appear more significant than quieter forms of strength that do not seek attention. The tension between these two concepts arises from how society tends to prioritize visibility over substance. People are naturally drawn to what they can see and measure, which can lead to an imbalance in how value is assigned. Quiet strength may be underestimated simply because it does not fit conventional expectations of success. This can create situations where individuals who possess deep resilience and integrity are overlooked, while those with more visible achievements are given greater recognition. Another important aspect is the longevity of each. Quiet strength tends to be stable and enduring, built over time through consistent behavior and inner resilience. Loud success can sometimes fluctuate, as it may depend on external factors such as public perception or changing circumstances. This does not diminish its value, but it highlights the difference in how each is sustained and perceived. Understanding this contrast encourages a deeper evaluation of what truly defines strength and success. It shifts focus from what is immediately visible to what is consistently demonstrated over time, revealing that the most impactful qualities are not always the ones that receive the most attention. The weight of unspoken stories refers to the emotional and psychological burden carried by experiences that are never shared or fully expressed. Every individual accumulates moments that shape who they are, events involving struggle, sacrifice, responsibility, or difficult decisions. When these experiences remain unspoken, they do not disappear. Instead, they stay internal, influencing thoughts, behavior, and identity in subtle but powerful ways. The weight comes from the effort required to carry these memories without release, often over long periods of time. Unspoken stories are often held back for specific reasons. A person may choose silence to protect others from worry, to avoid revisiting painful memories, or because they feel that their experiences would not be understood. In some cases, the nature of those experiences may make them difficult to explain, either due to complexity or emotional intensity. This leads to a situation where the individual continues to function outwardly as usual, while internally carrying layers of meaning that others are unaware of. This silence can create a disconnect between appearance and reality. To an outside observer, the person may seem calm, distant, or even unaffected, but beneath that exterior lies a depth of experience that shapes their responses and decisions. Because these stories are not shared, others may misinterpret behavior, assigning meanings that do not reflect the true cause. What appears as indifference may actually be restraint, and what seems like simplicity may be the result of profound experiences that remain hidden. The weight also affects how individuals process their own experiences. Without expression, there is limited opportunity for reflection through conversation or external perspective. This can lead to a form of internal repetition, where thoughts and memories are revisited without resolution. Over time, this can contribute to emotional fatigue, as the individual continues to carry these stories without acknowledgement or relief. At the same time, unspoken stories can also be a source of strength. The ability to endure and carry such weight requires resilience and control. It reflects a capacity to manage complex emotions and responsibilities without allowing them to disrupt outward stability. However, this strength often goes unrecognized because it is not visible to others. When these stories are eventually revealed, even partially, they can significantly alter how a person is perceived. What was once unseen becomes a source of understanding, providing context for behaviors and decisions that previously seemed unclear. The weight that was carried silently becomes evident, reshaping perceptions and often leading to a deeper sense of respect and awareness. Transformation of perspective refers to a profound shift in how an individual sees, interprets, and understands a person, situation, or even their own past beliefs. It is not a minor adjustment or a gradual change in opinion, but a significant reorientation of thought that often occurs after encountering new information or experiencing a powerful realization. This transformation challenges previously held assumptions and replaces them with a deeper, more accurate understanding of reality. At the core of this transformation is the recognition that earlier perceptions were incomplete or flawed. People tend to form opinions based on limited information, relying on visible behavior, surface-level interactions, or personal expectations. These initial judgments can feel certain and stable, creating a framework through which all subsequent experiences are interpreted. However, when new insights emerge that contradict this framework, it creates a moment of disruption. The individual is forced to confront the gap between what they believed and what is actually true. This process often begins with a sense of surprise or disbelief. The mind resists change because it is more comfortable maintaining consistency than accepting uncertainty. As the new perspective becomes clearer, the individual starts to reassess past experiences, reinterpreting them in light of the new understanding. Events that once seemed insignificant or confusing may take on new meaning, revealing patterns or intentions that were previously overlooked. This reevaluation can be both enlightening and unsettling, as it requires letting go of earlier beliefs. Another important aspect of this transformation is the emotional impact it carries. It can evoke a mix of clarity, humility, and sometimes regret. Realizing that one's previous perspective was limited may lead to a sense of misunderstanding or misjudgment. At the same time, it opens the door to a more nuanced and empathetic way of seeing others. The individual becomes more aware of the complexity that exists beneath surface appearances, reducing the tendency to make quick or absolute judgments. The transformation of perspective also influences future behavior. Once a person has experienced such a shift, they are more likely to approach new situations with greater caution and openness. They may seek to understand context before forming opinions, recognizing that what is visible is not always complete. This change in approach reflects a deeper level of awareness, where understanding is prioritized over assumption. This transformation is not just about gaining new information, but about reshaping the way reality is interpreted, allowing for a more accurate and meaningful connection between perception and truth. Legacy beyond wealth refers to the idea that a person's true impact is not defined by material possessions, financial success, or visible achievements, but by the lasting influence they leave on others through their values, actions, and character. While wealth is often seen as a primary measure of success, it is limited in its ability to capture the deeper and more enduring aspects of a person's life. Legacy, in this sense, extends far beyond what can be owned or displayed, focusing instead on what is passed on in terms of principles, lessons, and intangible contributions. This concept challenges the common assumption that success is best measured through accumulation. Material wealth can provide comfort, opportunity, and security, but it does not necessarily reflect the depth of a person's experiences or the significance of their contributions. A person may appear to have little in terms of visible assets, yet possess a legacy shaped by discipline, resilience, and sacrifice. These qualities, though not immediately measurable, have a lasting impact on those who come into contact with them, influencing how others think, act, and approach their own lives. Legacy beyond wealth is often built through consistent behavior over time. It is reflected in the way a person handles responsibility, treats others, and responds to challenges. These actions create a pattern that others observe and internalize, even if it is not openly acknowledged. The influence of such a legacy may not be immediately apparent, but it becomes evident in moments of reflection, when individuals recognize how their own values or decisions have been shaped by someone else's example. Another important aspect is that this type of legacy is not dependent on recognition. A person does not need public acknowledgement for their influence to exist. In many cases, the most meaningful legacies are those that are quietly carried forward, without formal documentation or widespread awareness. This makes them less visible, but not less significant. The absence of recognition can even reinforce the authenticity of the legacy, as it is built on genuine actions rather than the pursuit of acknowledgement. The realization of a legacy beyond wealth often comes later, sometimes after a person's role or presence has changed. It can bring a deeper appreciation for what was previously overlooked, as individuals begin to understand the true value of what was given to them. This recognition shifts the focus from what was materially present to what was internally developed, highlighting that the most lasting forms of wealth are those that shape character, perspective, and understanding. Global connection, with Geneva as symbolic, represents the idea that a person's influence, actions, or past can extend far beyond their immediate environment, reaching into international spaces that are often associated with power, diplomacy, and high-level decision-making. Geneva, in this context, is not just a physical location but a symbol of global importance, known for its association with international organizations, negotiations, and critical discussions that shape policies and outcomes on a worldwide scale. When a story connects to such a place, it suggests that the scope of impact is much larger than what is visible in everyday life. This concept emphasizes the contrast between local perception and global reality. An individual may appear ordinary within their personal or family environment, with no obvious signs of widespread influence or recognition. However, their actions, responsibilities, or past experiences may have connected them to events or roles that operate on an international level. This creates a disconnect between how they are perceived in one context and the significance they hold in another. The idea of a global connection reveals that a person's life cannot always be fully understood within the boundaries of their immediate surroundings. Geneva, as a symbol, also represents credibility and importance. It is often associated with diplomacy, strategic discussions, and high-level interactions between influential figures. Being connected to such a place implies involvement in matters that require trust, expertise, and responsibility. This association elevates the perception of the individual's past, transforming what once seemed ordinary into something far more complex and meaningful. It highlights how certain experiences are not easily visible because they exist in spaces that are distant, both physically and conceptually, from everyday life. Another aspect of this keynote is the element of revelation. The connection to a global setting like Geneva is often not known until a specific moment brings it to light. This revelation can be surprising because it challenges previous assumptions about the scale of a person's life and contributions. It forces a re-evaluation of what was once considered limited or unremarkable, replacing it with an understanding of broader significance. The idea of global connection also reflects the interconnected nature of actions and consequences. What a person does in one context can have effects that extend far beyond that environment, influencing outcomes in ways that are not immediately visible. This reinforces the notion that impact is not always confined to what can be seen directly, and that the true reach of a person's actions may exist on a scale that is only revealed under certain circumstances. Recognition from powerful figures refers to the moment when an individual's value, contributions, or past actions are acknowledged by someone who holds significant authority, influence, or status. This type of recognition carries a different weight compared to ordinary acknowledgement, because it comes from a source that is widely respected and trusted. When a powerful figure recognizes someone, it not only validates that person's efforts but also elevates how others perceive them, often transforming opinions instantly. This form of recognition is impactful because it serves as external validation of something that may have been previously hidden or underestimated. The individual being recognized may not have sought attention or openly shared their achievements, which makes the acknowledgement even more striking. It reveals that their actions were significant enough to be noticed at higher levels, even if they were not visible in everyday contexts. This can challenge existing assumptions, especially if the person was previously seen as ordinary or unremarkable. Another important aspect is the authority behind the recognition. Powerful figures are often associated with decision-making, leadership, and access to information that others do not have. Their acknowledgement suggests that the individual's contributions have been evaluated within a broader and more informed perspective. This adds credibility to the recognition, making it difficult to dismiss or question. It also creates a sense of legitimacy, as the acknowledgement is not based on personal bias or limited understanding, but on a wider view of impact and significance. The effect of such recognition extends beyond the individual to those around them. People who may have previously overlooked or underestimated the person are prompted to reconsider their views. The acknowledgement acts as a turning point, shifting perception from doubt or indifference to respect and curiosity. It can also create a sense of surprise as the gap between prior assumptions and current reality becomes clear. This shift often leads to a deeper exploration of the individual's past and contributions, revealing layers that were not previously understood. For the individual receiving recognition, the experience can be both affirming and complex. While it confirms the value of their actions, it may also bring attention to aspects of their life that they had chosen to keep private. This can create a balance between acknowledgement and continued restraint, especially if their nature is to remain quiet about their achievements. Recognition from powerful figures ultimately highlights how value can exist independently of visibility, and how a single moment of acknowledgement from the right source can redefine perception, bringing hidden contributions into clear focus. Breaking personal assumptions refers to the process of confronting and dismantling beliefs that an individual has accepted as true without fully questioning them. These assumptions are often formed through limited observation, past experiences, societal influence, or incomplete information. Once established, they become a mental framework through which a person interprets others and situations. Because they provide a sense of certainty and quick understanding, people rarely challenge them unless something significant forces them to do so. This process begins when new information or experiences directly contradict what was previously believed. The contradiction creates a sense of discomfort, as the mind struggles to reconcile the difference between expectation and reality. At this stage, the individual may resist change, attempting to defend or justify their original assumptions. This resistance is natural, as letting go of established beliefs requires admitting that those beliefs were flawed or incomplete. However, as the new evidence becomes more convincing, the individual is gradually pushed toward reevaluating their perspective. Breaking personal assumptions is not just about recognizing that something was wrong, but about understanding why those assumptions were formed in the first place. It involves examining the thought patterns, biases, and influences that contributed to those beliefs. This level of reflection helps the individual become more aware of how easily perception can be shaped by limited information. It also reveals how assumptions can oversimplify complex realities, reducing people or situations to narrow interpretations that do not capture their full depth. Another important aspect of this process is the emotional response it generates. Realizing that one's assumptions were incorrect can lead to feelings of surprise, humility, and sometimes regret. The individual may recall past judgments or actions that were based on those assumptions, now seeing them in a different light. This can create a sense of responsibility to adjust not only their thinking but also their behavior moving forward. As assumptions are broken, they are often replaced with a more nuanced and flexible understanding. Instead of relying on quick judgments, the individual becomes more open to seeking context and considering multiple perspectives. This shift reduces the likelihood of repeating the same pattern of misjudgment, as there is a greater awareness of how incomplete information can lead to incorrect conclusions. Breaking personal assumptions ultimately represents a shift from certainty to awareness, where the individual moves beyond surface-level thinking and develops a deeper, more accurate understanding of others and the world around them. Emotional confrontation with truth refers to the intense internal experience that occurs when an individual is faced with a reality that directly challenges their previous beliefs, perceptions, or judgments. Unlike a simple realization, this confrontation is deeply emotional, because it forces a person to not only understand the truth intellectually, but also feel its impact on a personal level. It is the moment when denial, assumption, and misunderstanding are replaced by clarity, often bringing a surge of conflicting emotions. This confrontation typically arises after a significant revelation where the truth cannot be ignored or rationalized away. The individual is placed in a position where they must reconcile what they once believed with what is now undeniably evident. This creates a form of internal tension, as the mind and emotions work together to process the new reality. The person may initially experience shock or disbelief, especially if the truth is far removed from their expectations. This is followed by a deeper emotional response as the implications of that truth begin to unfold. One of the most challenging aspects of this experience is the recognition of one's own role in misunderstanding or misjudging the situation. The individual may reflect on past thoughts, actions, or attitudes, realizing that they were based on incomplete or incorrect assumptions. This awareness can lead to feelings of regret, guilt, or even embarrassment, as the person acknowledges the gap between perception and reality. It requires a level of honesty and self-awareness to accept that one's earlier perspective was limited. At the same time, emotional confrontation with truth can also bring a sense of clarity and release. Once the truth is fully acknowledged, the confusion or uncertainty that existed before begins to dissolve. The individual gains a clearer understanding of the situation and the people involved, allowing for a more accurate and meaningful interpretation of events. This clarity, however, does not come without emotional weight, as it often involves processing the consequences of previous misunderstandings. Another important element is the lasting impact this confrontation has on the individual's mindset. After experiencing such a moment, a person is more likely to approach future situations with greater caution and openness. They become more aware of the limitations of their own perspective and more willing to seek deeper understanding before forming conclusions. This process represents a turning point where truth is not just acknowledged but felt, reshaping both perception and emotional awareness in a way that leaves a lasting impression. The power of respect and honor lies in their ability to define how individuals perceive value, character, and meaning beyond material success or visible achievements. Respect is an acknowledgement of someone's qualities, actions, or principles, while honor represents a deeper sense of integrity, responsibility, and adherence to a set of values. Together, they create a framework through which people evaluate not just what someone has accomplished, but how they have conducted themselves in the process. Respect is often earned through consistent behavior that reflects reliability, discipline, and fairness. It is not something that can be demanded or imposed, as it develops naturally over time based on observation and experience. When someone demonstrates these qualities repeatedly, others begin to trust their judgment, value their presence, and recognize their contributions. This form of respect carries a quiet strength because it is rooted in genuine acknowledgement rather than obligation or social expectation. Honor, on the other hand, is more internally driven. It reflects a commitment to principles that guide a person's actions, even when those actions are difficult or come at a personal cost. Honor is closely tied to responsibility, as it often involves making decisions that prioritize duty, ethics, or the well-being of others over personal gain. This commitment can require sacrifice, restraint, and the willingness to act without seeking recognition. Because honor is not always visible, it may go unnoticed, yet it plays a crucial role in shaping a person's character and the way they are ultimately remembered. The power of these concepts becomes evident in how they influence relationships and perceptions. When respect and honor are present, they create a sense of trust and credibility that cannot easily be replaced by superficial achievements. People are more likely to listen, follow, or rely on someone who has demonstrated these qualities, as they represent stability and consistency. This influence extends beyond immediate interactions, shaping long-term impressions and the legacy a person leaves behind. Another important aspect is how respect and honor can exist independently of external validation. A person may not receive widespread recognition, yet still hold a strong sense of honor and be deeply respected by those who understand their actions. This reinforces the idea that true value is not always reflected in what is publicly acknowledged, but in what is consistently upheld. The power of respect and honor ultimately lies in their ability to reveal the deeper measure of a person, highlighting qualities that endure beyond appearances and leaving a lasting impact on how they are perceived and remembered. Redemption arc refers to a process of personal transformation where an individual moves from misunderstanding, error, or flawed perception toward awareness, growth, and a more meaningful understanding of truth. It is not about correcting a single mistake, but about a deeper shift in mindset that unfolds over time, often triggered by a powerful realization. This transformation involves recognizing past misjudgments, accepting responsibility for them, and gradually changing one's perspective and behavior as a result. At the beginning of a redemption arc, the individual is often unaware of their own limitations or incorrect assumptions. They may hold strong beliefs about a person or situation, shaped by incomplete information or surface-level observations. These beliefs feel justified at the time, creating a sense of certainty that prevents deeper questioning. However, when new information emerges that contradicts these beliefs, it disrupts that sense of certainty and initiates the process of change. This moment acts as a turning point, forcing the individual to confront the gap between what they believed and what is actually true. A key aspect of redemption is the willingness to accept that one was wrong. This can be challenging, as it requires humility and self-reflection. The individual must revisit their past thoughts and actions, recognizing where they misjudged or misunderstood. This reflection often brings a sense of discomfort, as it involves acknowledging mistakes that may have affected others or shaped relationships negatively. Despite this discomfort, it is an essential step in the process, as it creates the foundation for genuine growth. As the arc progresses, the individual begins to adopt a new perspective. They develop a deeper understanding of the person or situation they once misjudged, replacing earlier assumptions with insight and empathy. This shift is not immediate but gradual, as it involves reinterpreting past experiences and integrating new knowledge into their way of thinking. Over time, this leads to a change in behavior, where the individual becomes more thoughtful, respectful, and aware of the complexity in others. Another important element of a redemption arc is that it is driven by internal change rather than external pressure. The transformation comes from a genuine desire to understand and improve, rather than from a need to appear correct or justified. This makes the change more authentic and lasting, as it is rooted in personal realization rather than external expectations. The redemption arc ultimately reflects a journey from ignorance to awareness, where the individual not only corrects their understanding, but also evolves in how they perceive and respond to the world around them. Inner conflict and guilt refer to the emotional and psychological struggle that arises when an individual becomes aware that their past thoughts, judgments, or actions were misaligned with the truth. This conflict occurs internally, as the person tries to reconcile their previous beliefs with their current understanding. It is not simply about recognizing a mistake, but about feeling the weight of that realization and processing its implications on a deeper level. Inner conflict begins when two opposing perspectives exist within the same individual. On one side, there is the past version of their thinking, formed by assumptions, limited information, or personal bias. On the other side, there is the present awareness, shaped by new insights or revelations. These two perspectives clash, creating tension that can be difficult to resolve. The individual may question how they arrived at their earlier conclusions and why they did not see the truth sooner. This questioning can lead to a sense of uncertainty, as they reassess not only the situation but also their own judgment and reliability. Guilt emerges as a natural response within this conflict, particularly when the individual realizes that their misjudgment may have affected someone else. This guilt is often tied to missed opportunities, moments where they could have shown understanding, respect, or appreciation but did not. It may also stem from actions or attitudes that, in hindsight, feel unfair or undeserved. Unlike external blame, this guilt is self-directed, arising from the individual's own standards and recognition of their shortcomings. The intensity of this experience can vary depending on the depth of the realization. In some cases, it may lead to quiet reflection, while in others, it can create a persistent sense of emotional discomfort. The individual may replay past interactions in their mind, analyzing them with their new perspective and recognizing how differently they might have responded. This process can be mentally and emotionally exhausting, as it involves confronting aspects of oneself that are not easy to accept. Despite its difficulty, inner conflict and guilt can also serve as a catalyst for growth. They encourage self-awareness and a more careful approach to future judgments and interactions. By experiencing this internal struggle, the individual becomes more conscious of how their perceptions are formed and more cautious about making assumptions. This heightened awareness can lead to a more thoughtful and empathetic way of engaging with others, as the person seeks to avoid repeating the same pattern of misunderstanding. Realization of true wealth refers to the shift in understanding where an individual moves beyond the idea that wealth is defined purely by money, possessions, or visible success, and begins to recognize the deeper, intangible forms of value that shape a person's life. This realization often occurs after a significant moment of clarity, where previously overlooked qualities such as character, sacrifice, discipline, and influence become more meaningful than material indicators. It challenges the conventional belief that what can be seen and measured is the most important, replacing it with a broader and more nuanced perspective. At the core of this realization is the recognition that material wealth, while important in certain contexts, does not fully capture a person's worth or the impact they have on others. Financial success can provide comfort and opportunity, but it does not necessarily reflect the depth of a person's experiences or the strength of their character. In contrast, intangible qualities are often built over time through effort, resilience, and commitment, making them more enduring and meaningful. These qualities may not be immediately visible, but they influence decisions, relationships, and the way a person navigates challenges. This shift in understanding often involves reevaluating past judgments. The individual may recall how they once measured success based on external signs such as lifestyle, status, or recognition, and realize that these measures were incomplete. What once seemed like a lack of success may now be seen as a reflection of priorities that were focused on responsibility, duty, or long-term impact rather than immediate visibility. This change in perspective can bring both clarity and a sense of humility, as the individual acknowledges the limitations of their earlier viewpoint. Another important aspect is how this realization changes what the individual values moving forward. Instead of focusing solely on accumulation or outward achievement, they begin to appreciate qualities that reflect depth and substance. This can include respect, integrity, and the ability to influence others positively. These forms of wealth are not easily quantified, but they create a lasting impact that extends beyond personal gain. The realization of true wealth also highlights the difference between what is apparent and what is meaningful. It encourages a deeper level of awareness, where individuals look beyond surface-level indicators and consider the broader context of a person's life. This understanding fosters a greater sense of appreciation for qualities that might otherwise be overlooked, reshaping how value is perceived and recognized in both oneself and others. Strength and humility refers to the idea that true power and resilience are often expressed not through dominance, pride, or the need for recognition, but through modesty, self-control, and a grounded understanding of one's place and responsibilities. It challenges the common belief that strength must be visible, assertive, or commanding, instead highlighting that the ability to remain humble while carrying significant responsibilities or achievements requires a deeper level of confidence and discipline. Humility does not mean a lack of ability or confidence, rather it reflects a conscious choice to avoid self-promotion or the need to prove oneself constantly. A person who embodies this form of strength is aware of their capabilities and experiences, but does not rely on them to seek validation or superiority over others. This creates a quiet presence that may not attract immediate attention, but carries a sense of stability and authenticity. Their actions are guided by purpose, rather than the desire for acknowledgement, allowing them to focus on what needs to be done without distraction. One of the key aspects of strength and humility is self-awareness. The individual understands both their strengths and limitations, which allows them to act with balance and clarity. This awareness prevents overconfidence and encourages a more thoughtful approach to decisions and interactions. It also enables them to remain composed in situations where others might feel the need to assert themselves, as their sense of worth is not dependent on external approval. Another important element is restraint. In many situations, it can be easier to seek recognition, defend one's achievements, or respond to being underestimated with visible assertion. Choosing humility requires control over these impulses, allowing the individual to remain focused on their responsibilities rather than their image. This restraint often goes unnoticed, but it reflects a strong internal discipline that is not easily shaken by external circumstances. Strength and humility also influences how others perceive and interact with the individual. While it may take time to be recognized, it often leads to a deeper level of respect. People tend to trust those who do not exaggerate their importance or seek attention unnecessarily, as it suggests sincerity and reliability. This form of strength creates a lasting impression because it is consistent and genuine, rather than dependent on temporary displays of power. The concept ultimately reveals that the most enduring form of strength is not always the most visible, but the one that remains steady, grounded, and focused without the need for recognition or validation. The final message about valuing people before it's too late centers on the importance of recognizing, appreciating, and understanding the people in our lives while we still have the opportunity to do so. It highlights how easily individuals can be overlooked or misunderstood when their true value is not immediately visible. People often assume there will always be more time to ask questions, express gratitude, or build deeper connections. But this assumption can lead to missed opportunities that cannot always be recovered. One of the key elements of this idea is the tendency to delay appreciation. In everyday life, attention is often directed toward immediate concerns, personal goals, or external measures of success, leaving little space for reflection on the people who quietly contribute to our lives. When someone's efforts are not openly displayed or explained, they may be taken for granted. This lack of recognition does not necessarily come from indifference, but from a limited awareness of what that person has done or endured. As a result, their value remains unacknowledged until a moment of realization brings it into focus. Another important aspect is the role of assumptions in shaping how people are valued. When individuals rely on surface-level observations, they may form incomplete or inaccurate impressions of others. These assumptions can create emotional distance, preventing meaningful connection and understanding. By the time the truth becomes clear, the individual may realize that their earlier perception prevented them from fully appreciating the relationship. This realization often carries a sense of urgency, as it reveals how much was missed due to a lack of awareness. The emotional impact of this message is tied to the idea of regret. When people recognize the value of someone after a significant moment has passed, they may feel a sense of loss, not necessarily because the person is gone, but because the opportunity to understand and appreciate them earlier was not taken. This regret can be powerful, as it reflects a missed chance to build a deeper connection or to express acknowledgement that could have mattered. Valuing people before it's too late encourages a shift in mindset, where individuals become more attentive to the presence and contributions of others in real time. It promotes curiosity, empathy, and the willingness to look beyond appearances, allowing for a more meaningful understanding of those around them. This awareness helps prevent the gap between perception and reality, ensuring that appreciation is not postponed until it becomes a source of regret. Conclusion. In the end, this story is not about a journey to a distant place. It is about a journey from misunderstanding to truth. It reveals how easily we can measure people by what we see, while missing everything that truly defines them. It shows that silence is not emptiness, simplicity is not failure, and distance is not always a lack of care. Beneath what appears ordinary, there can exist a lifetime of discipline, sacrifice, and purpose that goes far beyond our assumptions. The real turning point is not the moment of revelation itself, but what follows: the shift in perspective, the acceptance of truth, and the willingness to grow from it. It teaches that respect must be earned through understanding, that true wealth cannot always be seen, and that the strongest individuals are often the ones who never seek recognition. Most importantly, it reminds us that the people we overlook today may hold stories that redefine everything we believe tomorrow. This is a call to look deeper, to question assumptions, and to value people while there is still time to do so. Because sometimes the greatest lessons in life come not from what is shown, but from what was hidden all along. Good luck to each one of you on your journey of understanding, growth, and discovery. May you always look beyond the surface and recognize the true value in the people around you. Thank you.